Can you hear me all right now? Yeah? I promise I'll try and speak a little bit slowly. Let's just check how we're doing for time. Excuse the slightly slow start. So I'm, as you heard, head of academic affairs for Hult EF. That's part of EF, who I'm sure many of you have heard of, but we deal with training in leadership education, coaching, and language, which is probably, as I said, what we're most famous for. Today, I'm going to be talking about what we're doing to take the lid off language learning. So I'm going to be talking about the inside story of language learning that we're exposing now to our learners and stakeholders through the use of AI and the data that we mine in the live online language classroom. So just again, a little bit of background on EF. We are about creating change makers in the world of B2B. We're helping work here to drive change in business and organizations. And I was 8 years old when EF was founded. So you can do the math if you know my age, check me on LinkedIn. But then 20 years ago, I was an online teacher in a virtual online classroom for EF. Actually, it's 21 now, I lie. Right? But we had online teaching back then. This is no rush into something right now. We have legacy and experience in this. Many of you know, if you're any language teachers, if you're a language teacher, give me a wave. One, hello. You're among friends. We use the Common European Framework of Reference. I think we call it CEF or something like this in French. This framework of reference is written by an organization called Equals when it was first put together. EF has been a member of Equals since way back then and working on these language standards. We've been working and researching. We fund a research lab in Cambridge University where we look at advanced linguistics research as well. So we've been at the forefront of language learning for some time now. Like I said, over 50 years, not quite 60 yet. And it's very, very important to us to focus on the human in the interaction. We believe in very much socialized learning. Of course, we have different ways people can have self-driven, self-study, but that classroom interaction, that premium face-to-face with a teacher, that interaction with other students, we know that's a fundamental of what works in language learning. So we're very much behind that. And we're behind this experiential, interactive approach in everything we do. If you did see the video playing there, I know it stopped and started a few times, you'll have seen at the end there, even in our leadership courses, people actually doing very physical things, very what's called task-based learning, doing something to get them to think and interact with other people. In language, that's very important. This co-creation of language that happens in an effective language classroom where people develop their language together, feedback together, and get expert input from an expert teacher. That's very important to us. So I said teacher, let's see an expert teacher. Here we go. This is one of our teachers in, she actually echoes a bilingual teacher. She's working in China, and she's using our award-winning, Elton's award-winning from the British Council classroom EF Hyperclass. You can see that. She's kind of in a virtual environment. She can change the background. She can put things in front of her. She can pull up visual assets. She can write all over the screen, as well as the student up there, Secret. The funny name. Secret, of course, is not a real student. Secret is another team member just helping demonstrate this for you. And so interacting with the student, when the student sees this class, it's like a first-person perspective. It's like a video game. So if the teacher does go into a role play, which you might see in a minute, the student feels like they're actually in that environment. But what's important here today is not this virtual classroom, it's the data. Now, because EF build absolutely everything, this isn't Zoom, this isn't Teams, this isn't any other video communication platform, this is actually our own platform. So we control everything, all the data that's coming from the student and the teacher. We know every time there's a click, everything that's written on the screen, every word that's spoken. Okay, in a one-to-one class, that's data from one teacher, one student, but of course we might have a group class. So here's a section, will it play? Oh, yes. Again, teacher Aya here with 5, again, volunteers from the team. You're not seeing real students. You won't see real data today, just so you know. As they interact, because we control every single one of these video streams, so we can separately pull out data from every single person speaking. This is very different from if you work with Teams or Zoom. I know you can get the transcript afterwards, but it's a great big fat transcript of everybody. Right? You have to pull it apart separately. We actually get separate data from every single learner. And of course, because we own the whole system, we also have the visual data as well. So we know what's being shown on screen, we know when the slides change, and so on. And that's not just happening with one language lesson. Oh, excuse me. I think the clicker isn't that helpful. Sorry. That's happening for us with hundreds of language lessons all the time. So we teach, a new lesson starts 24/7 every 30 minutes with EF online. That's tens of thousands of lessons a day, hundreds of thousands of lessons a week, and millions of lessons, just about into millions of lessons a year, right? So all of these lessons, we are able to track all of that data. So rather than just show that student and that teacher, we can look at huge data patterns, we can analyze that with AI, and we can see how learning is evolving over thousands of teacher and students interactions with our material. Everything you're seeing around this video here is also fully created by us. So we know the syllabus, as I mentioned, based on the CEFR. We know all of the learning inputs that the students get. So we completely control this digital environment. So this gives us what I like to call a fully integrated language school. You can see down at the bottom here, this is in the self-directed learning. Here, students got an AI avatar that they're speaking to. They're using voice recognition, so they have an interactive conversation. And I know many people out here, again, who are working in competitors, and I know you're out there, that kind of thing is fairly standard in the self-paced learning, right? That use of avatars, AI, speech recognition. But then they've also got different live classroom formats, group classroom at the top, one-to-one format, different apps that we have for vocabulary, grammar, and so on. All of that is connected by the data flow. And because we own all of these tools, and we designed them to work together in an integrated way, we can track that student's learning journey. We can see what they just studied in self-study, and whether they're using that in class, which of course is connected thematically to the self-study. And we can watch that develop over weeks, months of their learning journey across thousands and thousands of students. So it gives a digital footprint for every single one of those students. And with that digital data, of course, we feed that into an AI, we build different models, whether it's a large language model that we're looking at to deconstruct what's happening in each student's text stream, or whether it's we also use visual models as well. You can, if you want to, maybe I'll come back to this, you can look at the concentration on the student's face, you can look at who the student's talking to, you can look at things being written on the screen, gestures and interaction and so on. So all of that human interaction is captured in different ways as well. Plus, of course, as I mentioned, that background data of what the student's done before and after. So the whole journey, or I talk about the learning journey. If you're are there any researchers in here? I'm not quite sure who everybody is. No? So no, one teacher, no researchers. If you're a researcher, you love the idea of data, and you love the idea of longitudinal data. What's happened over months and years. So I can track every student way back in their learning journey. It's exciting for me. Sorry, I have a PhD. I have to talk about this stuff. So it's helping us examine. This is old school, really. Every student's study activity and self-study. Everybody does this. All the competitors out there do this. But what we're really looking at now, this is very exciting, is every word spoken in every lesson. So that's speech stream from every student. And we can extract from that, of course, grammatical accuracy. So we can see how accurate that student's just been. And we can see if that matches with where they should be, what they've just been practicing and learning. Are they using what we've just taught them? You know, sometimes people say, oh, I've learned that, I've done that. Well, we're actually proving what the student can do. not in a language test, not in that fake way, but we're tracking what they can do and what they do as they learn and what their real level is. That's very powerful information. We can do, of course, the same with the range of vocabulary they're using. Are they using the words from the last lesson? Are they up to the level? And we can maybe show that to the student or show it to other people. I'll show you how that works in a minute. And, of course, their pronunciation. Pronunciation tells you a lot, not just how good their accent is, but also, if you look at the suprasegmentals in the pronunciation, you can see how stressed the student is. Or even if they're reading off the screen, how well they understand that. Actually, that notion is used in a lot of today's modern AI-powered language tests, including our own language testing tools, where you get the student to read something aloud. If they understand it, they sound different to if they just read it aloud. There's lots of data in there. So we can see a lot about a student from that, and we can even see, if you take the pauses when they're not speaking, when they do speak, how long they take to answer a question, it shows a measure of confidence, or if you're into language, fluency. It shows you how really on that level that student is. And also how much they're leaning into their learning. You know, if they're pausing a lot, waiting to be asked a question all the time, that's interesting data too. So all of this, as I mentioned, all these data points, we have that whole longitudinal data story. We've got the context. We know what slides are on the screen. We know what lessons being presented. We know what the student studied beforehand. So this gives us huge potential of classroom AI. If you work for one of our competitors, this is a fake screenshot that I've just made for this show. So if I see this in anybody's product, I know you've ripped this off, because our product, I promise you, does not look like this. This is just so you get the idea, right? So it's a kind of fun visual. So here I've got a student. It's Secret again. As you can see, as Secret's speaking, we can monitor in real time. We can take the data on, if we wanted to, grammar, vocabulary, speech. And if I wanted to, again, this is a mock-up, but I could show Secret how she's doing. We could say to, you know, oh, come on, push your level of vocabulary up. You're using those easy words you did last month on the course. What about the words you've been learning recently? So we can hint to her to do that. We can hint to her that her grammar isn't being sophisticated enough. She isn't pushing. An adult learner, you're all adults in this room, happy to see, an adult learner needs challenge, needs to be pushed. So many communicative language lessons around the world are good fun, very interesting, we all talk lots, we have a nice time, but we don't learn. You only learn when you demand high of your students, when you get them to push the boundaries. And as adults, when you set goals and micro goals in learning, so when you make it clear what they've got to achieve and show them that process. A lot of people gamify that to make it clear you're moving forwards. Again, this data makes it clear you moving forwards. I'm a bit of a runner. Hopefully I look in reasonably good shape. This is not my running watch. If it was my running watch, it would be telling me right now that my heart rate has gone up a little bit, that I'm a little bit stressed. It would also tell me about my last few runs. It would give me metrics like, your current marathon time is this. You did this much in your next training session. Make sure you do that next. All of this kind of data that we get from all those wearables, we can use in the classroom space. Of course, Secret's on her own there, so she needs the data. It's personal data, it's hers. But what about a group class? Can we have a group? Just a minute, I think the clicker is slow.
Eduardo, yes. What do you think?
We can do it.
Let's see.
Hooray. Sorry about that. Clicker thing. So here, we saw the students in a group class before. Imagine instead of showing that to the student, you show the teacher what's going on now. So the students are obviously getting their own display, but again, this isn't a real visual from our classrooms, right? This is a mock-up, so you can understand what I'm talking about in a simple way. So we can show some metrics, you know, how accurate, how confident are those students? Imagine we've got a bunch of students there. The teacher might want to know, well, are they all using high-level vocabulary right now or not? So they speak together in activity, and the teacher's getting an indication of what's going on. Even if maybe Jane, who was speaking there for a second ago, maybe Jane made a mistake in a preposition of place. And then maybe Eduardo's making a mistake in a preposition of place. So we can have a list of common mistakes appear on the screen for the teacher. So the teacher can go, when the activity's finished, ooh, what should I focus on now? And the teacher can actually give those, give a little bit more practice or check on specific things to students. Great teachers can do that, but in a group lesson, you can't track what everybody's doing all the time. I've deliberately got all these things on at the moment. You should be hearing sound. Don't worry if you're not. But with all these people speaking at once, and as I mentioned, tens of thousands of students talking all the time, we're tracking all that data to build a big picture. So we can show the student that data, we can show the teacher that data, we can show their sponsor. This is a lot of businesses in this event. A lot of learning takes place later in life. We see that from EF's own research. We test 2.2 million people every year. We produce a big global report called the English Proficiency Index. We can see that most people's level of language doesn't increase at school. It increases going into university and going into the world of work, whether they're sponsored by their employer to upskill or whether they choose to get sponsorship elsewhere from something like a government program and they use that funding to upskill themselves. It happens as adults. That's where the bulk of language learning takes place. So these organizations need to know about it. And if that learner is then wanting to go to a university or something like that, to an institution, they need to prove their learning. Classically, that's done by big language tests. Right now, potentially we could do away with testing because we have evidence of what the learner's doing in every lesson and how fast they're going. Remember my running watch? It gives me an estimated language time. What about if it gave me an estimated Cambridge exam score in 3 months, 2 months, 1 month? So we can start to build these learning metrics now. And that's what we're looking at. And as we build these metrics, we're talking to you, we're talking to society, and showing what actually works in language learning. And we're showing this. This is our, if you are a business who has a large number of customers with us, we give you this customer, it's called Customer Reporting Center. And all of these metrics can be shown here. A lot of stuff you'll recognize on there is very familiar. Our latest stuff, I'm not allowed to show you yet. I can just talk about it in general terms. And all of this lovely data, we can use for a feedback loop there. You've got my little loop here. We can use it within the teaching, as you've seen there. We can show it also over the learning journey. So in the teaching, we can give that classroom feedback. We can tell the student or we can tell the teacher how the learning's going. We can also even, I said maybe there's a list of common mistakes. We can use AI to generate, generative AI, we can generate language tasks that the teacher could choose to use or not. Right? So if the students are talking about a particular topic today, they've made a particular kind of error, the AI can automatically produce a text to be used in another activity for the teacher. Or that can even be done in our self-study work. As I mentioned, a lot of self-study. And we're experimenting with that now. We're even experimenting with, if a teacher's having difficulty explaining something, or students are stuck on a word or a term, like, for example, I don't know, exhibition, we can use the AI to generate an image instantly on the term or the word that they want and feed that into the classroom. So tools to supercharge the learning for the teacher and the students in that learning space. But then also, we can use that to motivate the learners, like my running watch, setting micro goals, showing them what is often referred to as gamification, those little dials, how you're doing, and then societally, over that whole journey, the whole longitude, prove what learning works. I have 2 questions. I have 4 minutes. 2 questions that I want to ask you, and I'm not sure you're going to give me answers that quickly, so I would love you to come to our stand and discuss this with me, because I've talked a lot about AI and data. I've tried to. And the thing with AI and data is it does a lot of things too fast for people, and maybe those things aren't all considered to be that ethical. It's kind of too much information, things we maybe didn't want to know or we didn't want others to know. So one question is, what data can we ethically use? If I capture people's face in a classroom, Do I want to know how much they're concentrating? Right? Is that a good thing to know? Cornell University says yes, by the way. Cornell University, they put code up on the internet. If you're into GitHub, you can see how attentive learners are in lessons in Zoom by using their tools. Stanford University says no. Stanford University says if people have to concentrate all the time in an online lesson, they get Zoom fatigue. Stanford University says Zoom fatigue is real. You can't concentrate on a screen all the time. You have to turn off and relax. So there are competing dialogues about what data we can use. Also, visual data. Actually, visual data in China is your passport. So all this lovely data I've talked about, we have a lot of students in China. We can't use any visual data because in China, that is highly personal information. That literally is how you buy and sell things in China now. And who should we tell that? Do we share? So we have a great new learning metric. I won't show the visual on this because of time. We have a great new learning metric right now called the speak up rate or speak up score. We can tell how much students are being fluent in lessons. And after all, in a lesson, well, you need to, excuse me, I skipped the visual. You need to speak up. You need to be actively engaged. If you are actively engaged, you're going to learn more and you're going to learn faster. If you're just in the lesson doing nothing and listening passively, that's worth knowing. So we've built an AI model that tracks that of our students. Now, our big question right now is, do we show it to the students to say, come on, learn a bit more, speak up a little bit more, this is good, but learners who progress fast, and to start this model, I can tell you, I assessed 80,000 students who'd been studying for more than 10 lessons. That's a lot of data. Actually, now we're doing that live with hundreds of thousands of students to keep the model proving. But even 80,000 to me as a researcher was incredible, right? But do we just tell that student, or do we tell their employer, or the government, or the university that they're not studying in class? That's a dangerous thing. So those are the questions I want to ask. And just a final one to leave you with. At AI, as I mentioned, we're about that human contact point. We're about using this premier learning interaction, this socialized interaction. We know AI will change education, but we don't think it will replace teachers. We think it's going to supercharge them. Like that Microsoft Copilot, it's the Copilot, the teacher's the pilot. So teachers and students in self-study mode can supercharge their learning with this. This is from our chairman, Philip Holt. We're still a family-owned company, EF, even though it's as big as we are. So I've got to get off the stage before they throw me off. Come and speak to me about those two conversations on stand M25, and my colleagues are also giving out flyers about this, and I'll tell you more about the language learning journey. Thank you very much for your attention.